What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special episode of the Unofficial Visit presented by Kinatrax. We're back at Wake Forest University. We're going to be taking a special look inside the pitching lab. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel Backside Groundballs Media. Hopefully you enjoy the vid. Here on the campus of Wake Forest University in the pitching lab, I'm standing here with Mark Seaver, the Assistant Director of Sports Performance for Baseball and Golf. We're about to take you through a on-base U movement screening, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here, and we're excited to get to it.
Sure. Sam, come on over here. I'll have you right here in front of the camera. Go ahead and face me. Since you haven't had another movement screen before, what you're going to do is just kind of repeat everything that I do. So the on-base U movement screen is based off the TPI movement screen, which is the Titleist Performance Institute, which is a golf movement screen, which is based off of the FMS movement screen, and again, all the way back to Gray Cook. What I'm looking at is how your body moves, and if your body can get into certain positions, and it may affect your pitching mechanics. A lot of times, the coach will want to change your mechanics, but your body can't move in that direction yet. So if there's some ways we get you to move more optimally, and more efficiently, I shouldn't say optimal, but more efficiently, and it'll help you move more efficiently on the mound. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is stand feet shoulder width apart, toes pointed forward, arms across our chest. Go ahead, cross your arms. Soft knees, and I just want you to hinge at the hip. So what I'm looking here now is your posture. We'll see your back position. All right, so you have a little bit of a curve in your lower back, which is fine. All right, the next move, what we're gonna do is stay in that same position. We're gonna round our back and arch our back. We're gonna imagine our hips are a bucket of water. We're gonna dump the bucket behind us and in front. Okay, here we're looking for quality of movement. Feel a little bit of shake, which is fine. It's more neuromuscular control of that, all right? All right, so from that same position, we're gonna lock in here, lock our upper body, and we're gonna rotate our lower body. You can move your knees. The only thing I don't wanna see you do is wag your tail. Okay? Good rotational movement. Now if I hold your shoulders still, does it make it easier?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just increasing your stability, right? And again, a lot of it's understanding how your body moves in that direction. All right, next test, we're gonna go feet a little bit wider than shoulder width, arms out in front, squat down and hold it. Is that as low as you got? Okay, now we're just looking at squat depth, ankle mobility. From here, let your arms hang between your knees. Feel like you're gonna fall backwards? Nope, good. Hop on up. What we're looking for is trying to get your thighs to parallel here in a good squat position. All right, next we're gonna go heel to our instep. Okay, from here, this position, see where the edge of my toe is? We're gonna step right to the outside of that mark. Perfect. And we're gonna take a bat or a stick, put our hands on our pelvis, lock your pelvis in. From here, we're gonna internally rotate our hip and touch our toe to the pole, without compromising our hips here. All right, good. Now if I hold you still. Still got it? Do that left one again. Left one a little tight?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so if your left hip is a little bit tight, that would affect, as a right-handed pitcher, affect you getting over your glove side. Right. Okay. Next one, we're going to take a knee on this imaginary line here. Okay. This is your half kneeling position. Okay. I want you to take that toe, put it right in front of my toe. Put your hands on the ground for now, just for balance. I'm going to mess with your back foot, get you in line here. So now we're going to look at your core stability and balance. Okay. From this position, take your hands off the ground and come into that half kneeling position again. Good. Switch positions, switch knees. Put our left toe right there, hands on the ground again. Okay. All right. Next, come up and balance again. Good, real good. All right, go ahead and stand up. Next, we're going to go to the plate here. We're going to go right here on this line. All your weight is on your right foot, left toe for balance. We're going to stick this at your waist, and then we're going to just externally rotate. Yep, right foot there, left toe for balance. Put the stick against your pelvis, thumbs against your hips, and rotate that way. Good. Left foot. Go the other way. Good. Same thing. Good. Good. Perfect. All right. Next, We got to move against to the wall. We're going to go toe against the wall, toe against your heel, and then we're going to do a calf raise. So we're looking at strength and range of motion and quality of movement here. Good. Left foot. Good. All right. Come on over here, Sam. Have a seat in the chair. Okay. I want you to slide out on the edge of the chair. Okay. Next, we're going to go cross your right foot over your left foot. Squeeze your knees together. Most important part of this test is to keep those knees together in this. Okay. I'm going to hand you this stick. Put it over your shoulders like a back squat. From here, I want you to rotate to the right and hold it. Chin to your left shoulder. Go ahead, rotate to the right. Hold it. Chin to your left shoulder. Your other left. There you go. Good. Come back to the middle. Squeeze these knees. Hold that. Do it one more time. Other way to the left. Nope, I'm sorry.
Same side.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Same side. Good. Come back to the middle. Switch knees. Squeeze, hold, and rotate. Good. Come back to the middle. Pull to me. All right, so we're looking there. We're trying to get you to at least 45 degrees of quality movement. A lot of times pitchers who are right-handed pitchers will be able to get here real easy because they can separate their hips and their shoulders. But if they lack that, then you decrease power. You lose power if you can't separate. All right, next we're going to go feet shoulder width apart. We look at our ankle mobility. Arms by your side. All right, without moving your knees, I want you to roll your ankles out. Okay, and then roll your ankles in. Okay, hold your knees, see if it's a little bit easier. Hold your knees with your hands. Easier to do that? A little bit tough there, right? Okay, arms by your side. Without moving your knees, then we're going to go toes in as far as we can. And then toes out as far as we can. Okay, hold your knees, see, turning in, see if you can help it a little bit. Still pretty tight, right? So we lack a little bit of mobility here, a little bit of mobility here. Okay, all right, go ahead and losing my mind. Go ahead and stand up. Oh, I'm sorry, lay down on the ground for me. Yeah. On your back. The next two tests are based off your height. So what we're looking at is putting a ball underneath your feet and a ball at your shoulders to get about 85% of your height, right? All right, go ahead and stand up. All right, the first test, what we're going to do is put our toe equal to the ball. We're going to walk out here as far as we can. The goal is to get past that ball. Keep your toes pointed forward. Good, piece of cake. Go ahead and hop up. Our next test, we're going to go ball of the foot equal to the ball. We're going to come out of here into a lunge position. We want to get our toe equal to the ball. We're going to reach our arms straight overhead and then lean back as far as we can. Okay, reach straight up and then lean back. Good. All right, so what we're looking for here is hip flexibility and thoracic extension. Okay, now switch feet, do your opposite side. Okay, good. Arms straight up, lean back. Good. Now do you feel stretch anywhere?
Yeah.
Where do you feel stretch?
Lower back.
Lower back? Okay, so ideally what we're looking for is more of a stretch here. So if you start to feel a little bit in your lower back, maybe some thoracic extension exercises will help you out because we don't want to be pinching anything here. Right. Okay. So we've done an active test here, so we're going to do, or a passive test there when they tested your external rotation. We're going to test your external rotation here. So we're going to go 90-90, keep your elbow here and go into layback. Keep that rib down. Good, and we're just trying to see where you are on spine angle. Okay, go ahead, left arm. Okay. Let's get this aligned right first. Now go into external rotation. Okay, good. For the next test, I'm going to hand you this stick. We're going to go thumb out on this stick. We're going to go right out in front of our shoulder. We're going to go thumb down as far as we can without shrugging. Okay? So we're looking at internal rotation here of your shoulder. Good. Then out to the side.
Same way.
Same way. Good. Let's go 90-90. Now we're going for supination. Good. And then pronation. Good. Is that a little tight that way? A little bit. Left arm. Same thing. Okay, thumb down. Good. A lot easier on the left side, right? Good. And then 90-90. Pronation. Good, perfect. Easier on that side. Yeah. Right, so what I saw there, you lacked a little bit of internal rotation, which is typical for a right-hand pitcher, and then you lacked a little bit of pronation. So again, we can improve that. All right, so that's going to take pressure off your elbow when we throw. All right, last test we're going to do is move to the mound. We're going to look at your stride off the mound. So as a right-handed pitcher, I want you to put your right foot on the pitcher's plate. I want you to stride out like a normal stride, like a normal pitch, but I don't want you to move your back foot. So I want you to keep that back heel down, right? Okay, whoop. Come back. Go ahead and get back to the starting position. Do that again. Okay, one more time. Good. All right, so now put a mark where your toe is. Now go back to your starting position. Now we're going to go through our mechanics and go act like you're throwing a pitch and go ahead through your follow through. Okay, one more time. Good. Now I want you to go back to the pitcher's plate, put your heel against the pitcher's plate, and count how many steps it takes you to get down to that mark. So that's 3, 4, about 4.5. Okay, good. All done with me, Sam.
Appreciate you.
Sure, no problem.
All right, Mark, so we saw you run him through a various amount of tests there. Can you talk a little bit about what makes it so important? I saw you looking a lot about spine position, spine angle, the back. What makes the back so important in those positions you're looking for him to get into?
Being able to disassociate pelvis and torso. Obviously in baseball we do a lot of rotation stuff as well as golf. So all your power, and whether you're a hitter or a pitcher, comes from the ability to disassociate your upper body from your lower body. So we make sure we can get into extension. If you can't do this, you can't do this. So once we can get into extension, which you really go into extension, but again, you had a little bit of lower back pinch, so we'll work on that. There's some exercises you can do. And then some of the cats and camels, like where we did our pelvic tilt, that again, that's kind of might play into a little bit of why you have a little bit of lower back issue. But then when we test the rotation on the seated test, we're looking at your ability to stabilize your lower body and rotate our upper body.
And then talk about a little bit why the pelvis. You also did a lot of pelvis testing. Mm-hmm. What makes the pelvis so important? Is it similar to the disassociation, upper half, lower half, just being able to really turn to create that torque?
100%. Your pelvis is, you have two sides of your pelvis. So when you walk, your body does this, right? So when you pitch and you come up here and ability to lift your leg here and to get into this balance position, you've got to be able to turn your pelvis here and to be able to balance on that back leg. So if you lack pelvic control, you're going to have a lot of inability to get into that balance position. And when you throw, you've got to do this so your pelvis moves here. So again, just the ability to control your pelvis and get it into the right position will help your body up the chain, transfer force, and be able to move in the most efficient manner.
Awesome. Mark, we appreciate your time.
Sure.
Thank you
Anytime.
for doing this. It's
No
been
problem.
awesome. Good to meet you.
Sure. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you guys. Sure.
All right, we're now here with Dr. Kristen Nicholson, Wake Forest baseball biomechanist, which is an awesome title. We're going to run Sam through some mobility screening.
Range of motion and strength.
Range of motion and strength. All right, let's get into it. You'll explain for us, hopefully,
Sure.
as it goes on.
Yep.
You guys ready?
So these are some of my graduate students in the biomedical engineering program, and they're just going to do the actual measures. But we look at internal and external range of motion of the shoulder. We do both the dominant and non-dominant side to compare them to each other. We really look for the same total arc of motion on both their throwing side and their non-throwing side. We will also compare them to other, like 16-year-olds or other high school
Sure.
baseball.
And
pitchers.
are you looking, so when you say total number, external plus internal is the equation in
Yes,
that, I'm assuming?
yes.
And is there one that, if I have more internal, am I going to have less external? Is that typically the standard?
That's typically true. So on your pitching arm, you'll typically have more external rotation and limited internal rotation.
Okay.
But then on your non-throwing arm, you'll have more internal and less external. So we want internal plus external to be equal on both sides.
It doesn't matter which is which.
Right,
Okay.
yes. And then we'll also look at it in terms of on his throwing side, how much external rotation does he have. So if when he's pitching, we see that he has limited layback or limited external rotation, we'll then go back to this and see if it was, a deficiency in his actual range of motion, or if he just isn't getting it while he's pitching, things like that.
And so all of this makes it easier to make an adjustment. Is there an ideal world that you want to see, or is it just as long as these numbers match up, we're probably in a healthy state with our scap movement, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so right now they're also doing horizontal abduction, so how far across his chest he can bring his arm. That's one that you want fairly good mobility, and that one is related to the scap. And they also did flexion, which again is also related to scap, and the ability to move the shoulder, through layback and the delivery. As far as performance-wise, we want kind of the most motion, most mobility that you can get, and then injury risk. That's where you're really trying to look at whether the total arc on the throwing side is equal to the total arc on the non-throwing side. If they're limited in internal rotation, severely limited in internal rotation on their throwing side, that's when you start to think about those shoulder injuries and rotator cuff issues.
That's where the rotator cuff comes into play, is potentially at risk of we might be in some trouble here?
Yes.
And how easy is it if we see that? Easy adjustment to make, easy correction, or is it something that it just kind of depends on the person and how bad it is?
Yeah, I would say a lot of, if we see deficiencies here, it goes back into a lot of like arm care and stretching and maybe some strength things, but fairly easy because they're not like big mechanical changes that you're trying to make.
Sure.
So these are a lot, I don't know if they're easier, they take some time to make those adjustments, but they're definitely things that can be addressed.
Will you test people, let's say here at Wake Forest, will people test throughout the season? And have you seen as the season wears on, we start to lose in some places? If they're 100 innings into the season, are we starting to lose rotation in one way or the other? Does that happen? Can that happen?
I'm pretty sure it can happen.
Sure.
I know our athletic trainer typically does these measures as part of everybody's like pre-season intake.
Sure.
I don't know that they do it throughout the season unless there's an issue or an injury.
Okay, makes sense. And then lower half wise, so we saw him go through a lot of lower half movement for the hips. Is this all hip related as well?
Yes, so now they're just looking at internal and external rotation of the hips, and I know I heard Mark talk about if you're tight on your left side as a right-handed pitcher, that's going to limit your ability to rotate. And so we're just kind of reaffirming that here. So everything Mark did was a functional movement screen. So how do you move functionally, where this is like how much motion or range motion do you actually have?
Is this something where you would like to see both of the sides add up as well? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, don't know that it's adding as much as like the arm, but we would like to see that they're consistent from one side to the other. A lot of times what we do see is that their contralateral limb, the opposite limb, is tighter and has less range of motion than the other side.
And then will there be things, is this something that could cause an issue, and so there are adjustments to be made with this as well, or is this just kind of a baseline to understand how we're moving? Or
a little bit of both, yeah. So the issues that you see here is mostly that limited internal rotation and external rotation on the contralateral side, and that's something that you can address with stretching and mobility exercises and some weight room exercises.
As we flip him onto the stomach, what are they going into next?
So now they're going to do some strength measures. So they're going to measure strength of the rotator cuff. So in this position, they're going to have him do abduction and kind of horizontal abduction.
Sure.
So again, looking at how strong that rotator cuff is and kind of your lats and the back of your shoulder there. So they're going to have him press up as hard as he can. This is something that we'll compare to other high school pitchers to see kind of where he is and if he lacks some of that strength to protect the shoulder during pitching and also produce the velocity that you're looking for.
Is there a standard, is there ever like, with this, it's all relative, I'm assuming, especially to his strength? Because if he had never lifted a weight in his life, this would be, if you brought in someone who wasn't a pitcher, it'd probably be weaker than someone who is working all the time. So is there ever a number that you see that's like an alarm goes off, or again, relative?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an alarm number. We just, and I don't have the average numbers. That our athletic trainer
Sure.
will look at these and he'll put together a report. But he's got averages for high schoolers and averages for college pitchers and averages for professional pitchers. And so just looking to make sure that they're kind of in that average, and he'll red flag it if they're not, and recommend some exercises and stretches and things they can do to help.
Shoulder's pretty complex, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
49. Go ahead. 49 again. All right, switch sides for me.
Do you want to see this being consistent on both sides, or is it more common to see the pitching sides a little stronger or weaker?
I would say it's actually more common to see that the other side is sometimes stronger in maybe not in these motions, but in the internal rotation and external rotation. But in general, they should be pretty equal. I mean, you don't, obviously they're not using their other arm to throw, but you don't want a really lopsided, pitcher. So.
But there's some wear and tear that can create just a little bit of off balance.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that would be a red flag too. If the non-throwing arm was a lot stronger, then it's probably maybe not necessarily a pure strength issue, but maybe they're, feeling fatigued or have some injury that they're trying to work through that's causing that decrease in strength.
As you watch it happen, it certainly makes sense why you go through all of this, and it's important to do, because it's, instead of just relying on the, hey, how do you feel today?
Yeah.
How's everything feeling?
Well, and we like to say that all these measures and the functional movement screen kind of help inform what we see on the mound. So I don't think that these should be replacements for what you see on the mound in the 3D biomechanics. But like I said, if he's limited in his layback during pitching, is it because he physically doesn't have the range of motion? Is he just not getting there? Is he limited in his functional movements? So that's something we can go back to the results of these and kind of inform what we're seeing on the mound.
Interesting. And so this will be the internal strength test?
So now he's doing internal, well actually right now he's doing grip strength. So grip strength has been shown to be associated with ball velocity, but also with fatigue. So obviously we don't do that with the people that come in and see us once, but with the team they will kind of do this throughout the season and make sure that their grip strength is back to a baseline after an injury or after a particularly hard week or hard outing. They want to make sure that they've recovered and returned that grip strength. Do
they figure that forearm plays a part into that, protecting the elbow? All of that with the grip strength stuff is important to kind of, because that's a fragile ligament, as we know in the baseball world.
Yeah, I mean, we just did a lot for the shoulder, and they're going to do more for the shoulder, but there's not a lot that they do looking specifically at the elbow. And so this is one way that you can kind of assess that forearm fatigue and get an idea of kind of what's going on there and hopefully protect that elbow a little bit better.
Sure.
So now he's doing internal and external strength of the shoulder rotator cuff.
The first one, make sure you're pinching there, and rotate out like this as hard as you can. 92. Go ahead. 92 again. So now we're going to do the opposite. So now we're going to come in like this. Imagine your wrist coming to your elbow, and you're going to flutter your elbow out like this, and kind of like a chicken wing.
So up high you said pitchers more layback than internal. Is it same thing at the side with internal, external? You'll get more one way or the other with the pitching side?
Not necessarily, because this is strength, whereas what we were measuring before was the range of motion. Okay. And so typically they're stronger in internal rotation. Yeah, so he was 90 in external and 130 in internal.
Does that have anything to do with being able to activate the bicep when you come in?
So we are trying to not activate the bicep. So if that was they put a bolster here and told him that he needed to squeeze down a little bit on that as he externally rotated, and so that's to avoid actually using the delt to kind of get more strength. And then when he's coming in, he's putting his hand against the outside of his elbow, providing a little bit of feedback. It's saying you need to press against my hand as you rotate in, and that's to avoid getting bicep in there.
Sure.
So we're really trying to isolate the rotator cuff and the shoulder muscles here, and not get, you know, bicep and pec and delt.
157.
Would the numbers change if you were also standing? Because he's flat against the wall here, so standing, I would imagine you're able to anchor to the ground a little bit and get a little more.
Potentially, yeah. And then, you know, this is a handheld dynamometer, which is not probably the gold standard, but it's the easiest thing to implement in here. I have seen them do these exercises where they attach the dynamometer to like the wall and have them do it kind of like or against like a door frame to try to eliminate the person, you know,
Sure.
variability. But we get a good enough idea of kind of what's going on this way.
Awesome. Excited to get on the mound here in a couple minutes. We appreciate your help. All right, so walk us through a little bit of what is being captured here, specifically with the Kinatrax and what that can do.
Sure.
As he's kind of thrown here.
So the Kinatrax is, we have 8 Kinatrax cameras and they're all recording his motion, and then it'll build a model based on other pictures and everything. And we can look at everything from the ground reaction force, how much force he's putting into the ground, both at the rubber and down on the landing area. And then we can look at, you know, his knee extension, his hip extension, his pelvis rotation, his trunk rotation, his arm rotation, arm angles. Was that 4?
Yeah, that was 4.
All right, and now let's move to 2-seam. So we're able to collect full body kinematics and kinetics, so how the body moves, and then the forces and torques being put on the joints as well. And so we'll look at those for things that we can do to improve his performance, but then also things that he can do to decrease his risk of getting hurt.
Awesome. And what makes Kinatrax so special and such a good feature to have in a lab setting like this?
So there's a couple different ways that you can get all of that biomechanical information. So you can use a marker-less system like Kinatrax, or you can use a markered system where you put reflective markers on the pitcher before they throw. And so we have both in here, but the advantage of the markerless system is, you know, you don't have to put all those markers on them. You don't need necessarily a biomechanist or a trained student to know where exactly those markers need to go. They don't have to, you know, have their shirt off and short shorts and be, you know, super uncomfortable. In addition to having this stuff stuck all over them.
Right.
You can just be your normal clothes, normal situation, and get all that same good information. And the wake players also find that super helpful because they can use it, especially during fall ball, on almost a weekly basis. Anytime they're throwing a bullpen, they can throw it in here with the Kinatrax running and get feedback on their mechanics.
And then in game as well, right? I believe
Yes,
they have it
we
set
have
up
it
here.
on the field as well. So this is the first season that we've had it on the field in game. We're going to do some stuff this summer, comparing data from wake players where we have both in field and in lab data to see how well they correlate and whether or not you're getting kind of similar information. And the hope there, I think, is again to kind of help avoid those elbow injuries. Maybe you can start to see when a player gets fatigued. Identify different mechanical changes as that happens, information like that. And Garrett here, actually, his whole dissertation project is on the fatigue aspect. So
fascinating. And then how does the system, so the markerless, obviously it's connected to the body, so the camera's taking the 8 different angles, I'm assuming. How does that tie together in layman's terms, if you can? Because I guess to me, it's fascinating to think about that just these camera angles, we can then create a biomechanics kind of layout and see how you're moving.
Sure. So it's similar in to the markered system. So when you're using a markered biomechanics system, which is the gold standard, or just kind of how it's always, sorry, I didn't get that first slider, but how it's been done. So the markers are put on specific body landmarks, so that the inside and outside of the elbow, on the shoulder, inside and outside of the knee, places like that. So the Kinatrax cameras are essentially doing the same thing. They're using those 8 different camera views to identify those same points on the body in 3D space by having the multiple camera angles. And so once they're able to identify like the inside and the outside of the elbow, it can then assign like a segment to the forearm, segment to the upper arm, and calculate those angles and kinematics and kinetics that you're interested in. And so it's using like machine learning and big like math heavy functions to do that. And it's based on our data and data from other players at from major league and college and high school
so now you can
as
throw
well.
whatever you want to throw. Just let us know what you're going to throw. Throw a couple fastballs. Go fastballs.
Fastball.
All right.
So then I'm assuming the idea is to take all of this technology and basically combine it together. So between the force plate technology, the Kinatrax markerless motion, the TrackMan data, you're then being able to build essentially a profile of what it looks like and even how it's moving, and potentially I imagine if you're throwing on this weekly, you can also see if the body's changing and mechanically the adjustments need to be made.
So for players that come in to get a pitching evaluation, we'll compare them to other players of their level. So he would get compared to other high schoolers. And they kind of just get that feedback that one time. But we do try to give them feedback on performance stuff and also injury prevention. And then for the wake players, like we said, they can use it on a weekly basis, and they can tie it to the TrackMan, so they can look at, that was a good pitch and this was not a good pitch within the same session, and then start to look at, what mechanics were different in the good pitch according to TrackMan versus the bad pitch according to TrackMan, and really hone in on
what adjustments
what adjustments they need to make and how they can be successful every time.
Right. And then, so how much communication is going on between someone like yourself who's in the biomechanist role and the coaching staff of, hey, here's a bunch of information. They're not biomechanists, the coaches.
Yeah.
So is there a lot of translation that you spend your time doing?
Some. So here we try to, at least like in the fall when they all first arrive, we'll do a full official eval, very similar to what Sam went through today. And then we'll sit down with myself and the pitching coach and the athletic trainer and the strength and conditioning coach. And we also have another person whose job title is like lab coordinator and player development coordinator or head of player development, and talk about what we see, and they'll make a plan for the fall, what they need to work on, things like that. And I don't speak baseball, but the pitching coach doesn't speak biomechanics. Yep. So I try to put it in layman terms that he will understand, and I think we can communicate fairly well. But as far as like what to do about it, like I don't know that. But that lab coordinator, player development person kind of serves as that kind of liaison between the two. Like he should have enough basic understanding of biomechanics and how the body moves. Maybe not to the obviously extent that I do, but to understand what I'm saying, and then he knows a little bit better how to translate that to something that the pitching coach is going to understand.
Baseball terms. So it's a team effort.
For sure.
It takes a lot of people, but it seems to be the way to do it right. Good pitch, Sam. And are you doing anything, is there any testing with the Wake team in season, or is it strictly fall and then they can just whatever they get throughout the season, their bullpens if they want to look at it. But is there any reassessment after the initial in the fall, I guess is my question, end of year, beginning of spring?
When we only had the markered system, for sure, the goal was to try to do it like 5-ish times a year. You know, when they first come in at the beginning of the fall, at the end of fall ball, you know, maybe when they come back from Christmas, maybe right before the season, and then at the end of the season. Now with the Kinatrax system, it makes it a lot easier because they're using it all the time, and so there's not like the whole official like reassess, because they're reassessing every week
all
as
the
they're
time.
throwing
Right.
bullpens. During the season, there's a lot less going on. They're not really trying to manipulate their
compete, yep.
mechanics. So they're just trying to compete. Plus, now that we have the on-field, biomechanics, then you can take a look at that, and there's really not a lot of need to use the lab system during the season. Maybe for some of the pitchers that play less or are not on the travel roster, they might still utilize this and to their advantage and maybe get onto the travel roster. But in general, they don't use it as much during the season as they do in fall ball and their development period.
It certainly seems like the Kinatrax, though, has helped kind of let you dive deeper and continue to assess, and it kind of makes life easier for everybody involved, and they're able to continue to stay on top of it. Definitely feels like this is the gold standard, that's for sure.
For sure, yeah. And I think another advantage is, we assess the freshmen the second they step in the door.
Right.
And so we're able to identify things that we want to address, from day one. And so we have a lot of freshmen on our pitching staff that get good time. And I would say, having the Kinatrax and having that data all fall really helped them get to the point where they were ready to pitch this spring. Whereas a lot of other teams, your freshmen are still trying to figure out their bodies, and they probably aren't a big contributor to their pitching staff that freshman year.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for doing this. This has been a blast. We could probably do it all day, but we know you got places to be, and thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely.